Hello, lords and ladies of YouTube, and welcome back to Nightly Gaming's Nightly Gaming and another episode of me rambling about things to your face. So today I actually wanted to talk about some videos on Netflix that I actually really think are worth watching. So I'm actually not just into playing games, I'm really into the industry side of things. I'm really interested in how games are developed, the history of gaming, where the industry has gone, and trends over time, all that kind of stuff. So there's a few gaming documentaries on Netflix that I really think are worth watching. The first one I'm going to bring up is Video Games the Movie. It's kind of a general, broad overlook of the gaming industries from its origins, you know, where it started, into, you know, the Atari age, and then all the way up, you know, through modern consoles, up to the modern generation of Wii U, PS4, and Xbox One. So it's just a really good, broad view of the industry in general and the history of gaming. Shows the rise and fall of various companies, mentions key games, things like that. So if anyone's interested in like learning the background of gaming, it's primarily a console game history, which is something to keep in mind. I know a lot of people who would watch this are probably PC gamers. But if you, it still does kind of touch on it, but it's primarily a console game history, but that is what led to PC gaming eventually. They're kind of different evolutions in terms of industry, but it does contribute to that. So if you're interested in watching that, though, I would definitely recommend checking out Video Game the Movie, or Video Games the Movie. So that's on Netflix. Another one I'd actually recommend checking out is called Atari Game Over. So this goes over two things. One, it goes over in more detail the whole Atari age, you know, like Atari 2600 in particular. And then it goes over the gaming crash in the 80s, all that kind of stuff. While it also goes over a game that's kind of become infamous in the gaming world, which is the E.T. game, which was made for the Atari. And it goes over the development process of that, how it came to be, what happened to it. This is actually this documentary shows them digging it up out in the middle of the desert, that big landfill of it, but it was actually a bunch of other things. It wasn't just E.T. And they kind of go over why E.T. doesn't deserve all of the criticism that it gets. Yes, it wasn't a perfect game by any means, but it didn't deserve the absolute, just shitstorm that's come towards it about how terrible it is and things like that. It also mentions about how the gaming crash of the 80s came around, and that it's not just E.T. ruined the whole gaming industry. It was oversaturation of the market and all that kind of stuff, along with a few bad estimates on what was going to sell and so forth. So it's actually a really interesting documentary if you're interested in a bit more old school type stuff. Another game movie that I find interesting is called Indie Game the Movie. I know it's a few years old at this point, but it's just a fun look at a few years back how the indie scene worked. It still works somewhat similar today, trying to take your game, show it at conventions, and get a following as you're developing it, or even after you've developed it and trying to build up that following, and then it shows the success and failures of certain games and things like that, as well as a meltdown from a certain individual, rather famous indie developer who's famous for this meltdown. But I'm not going to talk too much about that. I would just recommend that you guys check it out, watch it. It's really a good documentary also. Another thing I would actually recommend watching on Netflix that isn't necessarily gaming related, what it is it's called Capital C. It's a documentary about crowdfunding. It does touch on the Kickstarter that happened with Wasteland 2, and then eventually the Torment game from the same people. So it does touch on video games in one section, but it also does touch on some other things on crowdfunding. It kind of addresses some of the concerns and issues of crowdfunding from both sides, but primarily focuses on the people who are getting funded themselves. And it talks about how it can affect them both positively and negatively, and how it can add stress, and how there's the potential issue of Kickstarter bloat and things like that, where they make so much money that they don't know what to do with it, and it ends up ruining the project because they made too much money. It touches on that idea, but it's just a nice look at how Kickstarter operates. You know, it's not a super detailed documentary. It's it's pretty interesting. Some of the people they decided to focus on are a little bit weird, in my opinion. But overall, it's still an interesting documentary that if you're interested in the concept of crowdfunding, it's worth checking out. So if any of you guys are a fan of my Kickstarter roundups or anything like that, then this might be something worth checking out for you. But I think that's all I really have to talk about. I know the League of Legends All-Star stuff is going on right now, and I have opinions, and there's been some great stuff, but I plan on talking about that on next Sunday, since it's still wrapping up today as I'm recording this. It hasn't started yet, and even by the time I upload it, it probably won't have started the last day, so it hasn't finished yet, but I will talk about that next Sunday, I promise. Otherwise, if you guys enjoyed the video, click that like button. If you want to see all my previous videos, you can check out my channel. If you guys want to see all my new videos when I upload them, you can click that subscribe button and be notified whenever I put my face out onto the interwebs. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.